Hey, it's Tracy from The Revived Mom. I hope you are having a great day or morning or afternoon or evening whenever you are tuning in. So today's talk is going to be about the book of Job. So if you have a Bible available, I would encourage you to turn to Job. It's in between Esther and Psalms in the Old Testament. And we are going to talk about restoration. That is what, to me, the book of Job is somewhat about. And then the deeper I've learned about it, it's about so much more than that. So last summer, for some reason, I was really just into the story of Job. And I've listened to different commentaries on it. I've listened to different authors and takeaways. I've read it in different translations and just compared different things. And I think sometime I tried reading it a few years ago with like a workbook that went with it, and I was not, I didn't finish it. B, I wasn't in the correct mindset to actually receive what the book had to offer. So for when I was reading it, it just seemed very, it seemed like, the book is about, well, let's start from the beginning here. The book of Job is about a man named Job who is righteous in the Lord's sight. And he is living his best life and living it in accordance with the Lord. Like he's doing well, he's prosperous, he has a lot of livestock, he has a lot of land and good crops and good harvest, a big family, and his kids are doing awesome, and like everything is going well. And it's not because of his hard work or anything like that. It's more because he's righteous in the Lord's sight. And one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came with them. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan's like, "Oh, from roaming the earth. Like, I do what I do, just going back and forth." And the Lord said to Satan, like, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." And here's where Satan kind of like, have you, like, let me test him. Like Satan kind of says, okay, I can guarantee that if enough hardship comes on Job, he will turn on you, God. And the Lord's like, fine, very well then. Everything he has is in your power, but you cannot kill him. So basically, God allowed all the hardship that Job endured. He allowed all of his crops to be destroyed, all of his livestock to be killed, all of his children to be killed. He allowed illness, like painful illness, skin illness to come over him. God allowed that to happen. And so I've read, like, people often will turn to the book of Job because they're like, God's allowing something bad to happen in my life. What could this tell me about it? And Job total is 42 chapters long. And so that first chapter is just like setting it all up. And it's basically setting it up. And within that first day, like all of that's wiped out. Like Satan wastes no time and just like, all right, God gave me free reins. Here we go. And so in that first chapter, it's saying, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. And I don't know why, but I always say it like King James version in that, like, I don't know why. So, Job is just lamenting, and he's saying like, oh my goodness, the Lord gave this to me and the Lord took it away. And, then that next one is like, the next chapter is like, Satan's like, all right, let's just sit back and watch what happens here, because there's no way he isn't going to like leave God. Well, then the next chapters start and Job starts speaking, but then he has 3 friends show up. And when you read, so it's Eliphaz, if you read the chapters, it's Eliphaz and then Job replies. Bildad and then Job replies. And then, where's his third? Zophar. So those are his three friends. And these three friends give him chapters of advice, unsolicited advice, advice that sometimes when we read it, it seems like good advice, but it actually is. It's saying like, Job, what did you do wrong? Like you had to have done something wrong. Like this doesn't just happen. Like you had to do something. Like what'd you do? Go repent and go fix it. And Job's like, but I didn't do anything. Like I didn't do anything. And so these friends are just giving this advice, and it's long and it's long and it's all of these things. And Job is just getting frustrated and angry with these friends because they are A, giving him bad advice. B, they're not just sitting with him in his pain. How often as friends, like how often as you yourself as a friend, do you not just sit with your friend in their pain? How often do you jump to advice giving? I know I do a lot. It's something I'm working on very deeply. How often do you just hold that space for your friend to feel all the feelings? Like think of all the loss that Job was going through. He needed to feel those feelings. He lost all of it in the matter of a day. But how often do we think we just need to come with advice? This is how it's going to be fixed. This is what you got to do. What, have you tried this? Have you tried this? What about this? Have you done this? How often do we do that? Where we just pour all this advice, but when someone comes to us and just is in complete hurt, do we just say, that sucks, and I'm sorry? But not only that, how often are we the friends that say, have you turned back to God? Have you just brought it to Him? Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why He's allowing this for you. Take it to Him. I hope you're taking it to Him. How can I help you take it to Him? How can I pray for you and bring it to Him? Like, how can we be those friends that don't just give pages of advice? Pages. Chapters, 40-some chapters of advice. How can we not be those friends? How can we be the friends that just sit with someone until they need something? Okay, so that's one big takeaway. And then eventually it gets like eventually Job is just like sick of his friend's advice and he needs to hear from the Lord. So then he like is turning to the Lord, and the Lord doesn't explain anything. Of course, God's mysterious. We got to just like accept that. Like He doesn't explain why it happened. Doesn't even really tell him like, oh yeah, well I let Satan like do all this. Like, come on, it's fine. Like He doesn't explain anything. Instead, He goes, but who's in charge here, Job? Remember who's in charge? He is. And that's what God explains to Job. He doesn't explain why. He just reminds him, come back to me. Come back. Come back. Right? He reminds him where it all came from. He reminds him where His faithfulness is, where the love is, where it all is. He just says, hey, He doesn't explain it. He doesn't say, here, this is why I allowed these bad things to happen. Right? Which is frustrating in our lives when we are going through so much pain. God allows it and we're like, why? And we want to know why. And when we really have to be turning to is who. Doesn't matter why. I guess you have it figured out. I'm just going to keep turning to you over and over and over again. And then at the end, Job finally was like, you're right. I know, Lord, that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. You asked, who is this that obscures my plans without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. And, Job, even being the most righteous man in the land, through all the trials, he slipped a little bit in remembering who was really his center. So last year I wrote a little note in this Bible. It said, the path to restoration. You go through loss, grief, exhaustion, sadness, isolation, anger, frustration, doubt, anxiety, depression, illness. You go through all of that. Or maybe you are going through all of that. But do you remain in him? Are you still in awe of him? And are you grateful no matter what? Now, I hate that line right there. I wrote that, I hate that line. Because when you're in the midst of grief, I don't really think you can be grateful in that moment. I don't think they can coexist. People might challenge me on that, but living it, I'm not sure it really can. But if you know the goal is gratefulness, you can move through the grief toward something a little bit more grateful. And then talking about restoration. So again, going back to the feel-good verses of Job, after Job had prayed for his friends, so first God said, you need to take care of these friends. Like, we're going to pray for your friends. They're clearly a little off base. We're going to remind them who's in charge here. We're going to take care of them first. So Job prayed for his friends, and then the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the former part. So he had like double the sheep, double the camels, double the oxen, double the donkeys. He had 10 more kids. But here's the other thing when you think of restoration. How often when we are on this path of sadness and grief of something we've lost, and I don't always mean loss to death. I mean loss of a business, loss of a job, loss of a routine, loss of friendship, just loss of a relationship. That any kind of loss, and we're going through that, we're typically so heartbroken that we're praying for something that what was. And what is dead is dead. So like Job's children, his original children died. Yes, God gave him more children, but it's not like he resurrected what was dead. What's dead stayed dead, and God brought new life to him. So when you're in that path of restoration, keeping in mind that what is restored is probably going to look totally different than what was. That thing that you're grieving and that you've lost and you're sad about, if you stay true to his path of restoration, he's going to bless you bigger, but it might look different. So are you keeping your mind and eyes set on what was, or are you open to receiving what God is preparing for you? Also tough. That's Job. That's my thoughts of Job. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you've maybe read in there before, what your thoughts are, takeaways. Again, this is just kind of like my takeaways from it. So like, I'm not saying I'm right. I could be totally wrong. I'm not trying to come from a big theological perspective. It's just how I feel this is positioned. And it's not just to look at, and I need to end with this. The whole point of it is that God doesn't explain why he allows things, but he expects you to keep turning to him, no matter what. He expects you to keep him in your sights of restoration. And that's kind of the main point. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear what your takeaways have been if you've read the book before, and maybe now it's time to read it. So with that, I hope you have a blessed day. I hope to see you in other lessons or in classes or workshops with me soon. Simplified Faith, the Revived Mom. Hope to see you soon.